Those of you who have heard me talk, I often talk a little bit about my hometown and how it was my hometown that inspired a lot of my thinking about what's possible in terms of regeneration, as I grew up in one of the most polluted places on the planet, and having lived around some of the most utter devastation environmentally, it was a very powerful formative experience for me. Rivers are not supposed to be red. I don't really even want to know all the heavy metals that are in my blood. Quite something. That's where the world's nickel came from, for batteries, for stainless steel, as well as some other things that they mined out of the rock. Really deep down. This is hard rock mining, way deep down. Now, my Aunt Rita, she had perhaps the most profound influence on my thinking, and she really introduced me to my first living building, which was the place where I spent my summers. And this was a cottage that her and her husband, Uncle John, built by hand. They pulled the rocks from the river into their small boat. This was an island that they owned, and that sounds extravagant, but if you go far enough north in Canada, an island is about the same price as an old used car. But this was a beautiful, pristine place, and we would spend, so I would go from the juxtaposition of this damaged industrial land, and I would visit the most pristine, wonderful place in Canada, and we would have, everything was passive solar and natural ventilation. This was really at the heart of how I came to do what I do. This area right around here is where I remember planting trees in this area at one point, and then seeing the trees begin to grow. But then when development started up around here, when there was sort of a boom in nickel, they came in and they blasted away the rock that was here and cut down all the trees we had planted, and they put in this stuff all here to the left. We used to play in the foothills here. Anyway, and this was my street. This is where my family would turn. This is Westmount. Because I saw both the worst impacts that humanity can have on soil, on lake health, on trees, and on people's health. And I also saw what we were capable of when we decided as a community to regenerate the landscape, which Sudbury has, of course, been busy with for many, many years. And literally, when I brought up environmental issues, people thought I was nuts. And they thought I was just a tree hugger. And if they found out I was Canadian, then they rolled their eyes, right? I had the opportunity to work on projects like this that were water independent, and then I worked on projects that were off the energy grid, that were only powered with solar, and other projects that were doing very interesting things around materials. And what I noticed was that we were basically showing one thing at a time that it was possible to build in a truly regenerative way, but nobody was bringing it all together. Anyway, we did this building and got top accolades with LEED, and it was a healthy building, won lots of awards, and yet I started to become anxious that we weren't doing enough. And what really started to get to me is as I started to understand the science of climate change and really started to understand the impacts that our civilization, frankly, was having on the entire world, I realized that there was a complete and utter misalignment between the efforts of our industry of design and what was actually happening in reality around the world. When the people that are charged with designing the very fabric of our communities are not focusing on the right things, then there's a problem. And what we are now learning is that the problem is much bigger than we even thought.